I'm right there with you.
All right, we're starting the recording. I'm Alex Milaychev. I have Anissa Matthews here, and we're going to be doing a little interview to talk about the completion process. Anissa just went through this training, and I was like, oh my God, that's so cool, and I wanted to ask questions. So I totally convinced her to answer my questions via this little interview.
Yay. Happy to be here.
Anissa, thank you so much. I'm super excited about this. My first question to you is, how did you hear about Teal Swan?
Well, let's see. Originally, I think the first time I heard of her was, I was working with a somatic therapist about a year and a half ago, and she actually referred me to her. She sent me a link, and she's a very cool therapist. Love her, by the way. She's all about somatics and stuff, and Teal's very much about somatics as well. So I don't know, somehow she knew of her and thought that I would resonate with this information in the video that she sent to me. And sure enough, I did. And from there, just started watching all manner of videos of Teal. And she's got lots and lots of videos on YouTube that are about all different subjects, all different topics, and very, very helpful, very useful stuff. So so I just got into her videos that way, I guess.
Ooh, I'd love to check that out. All right. So when you say Cymatics, tell me a little bit more about that and what you mean by that.
Yeah, so Cymatics is basically kind of like a body-based methodology therapy. So it's very about it's like embodiment. So it's really understanding that you have a body, that you're in a body. It's using your body to really tune in to things, to tune into your senses, to tune in to emotions. And just recognizing, because a lot of times people try to get really cognitive about things, right? Like let's try to figure it out and understand it. And if we can do that, then everything's going to be fine. But they forget that we have a body and that that's equally as important, and that the emotions are all living within our body. So there's all this information to be had there as well. So I really like bringing that in, the integration of all of that, and recognizing that we are body, mind, soul, emotion, spirit. We have a lot of aspects to ourselves that are all part of one big whole.
Yes. Yeah. Well, my next question, this is great, leads into my next question. What made her program stand out to you? Because there's a lot of stuff out there, and this one just stood out. What was that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I wasn't really, I guess her in general, I like a lot of different teachers. There are lots of different people out there. I guess you'd call them teachers, maybe spiritual teachers, some scientists. There's all kinds of, like you said, so much out there that are all talking about things that are very interesting for me. I love things along the lines of spirituality and consciousness and philosophy, psychology, all of that. And I think the fact that she just combines a lot of that into her teachings and into the things she's sharing was really attractive to me, just in terms of her as a person and what she's bringing to the world. As far as this process, I actually wasn't really like shopping for anything. I wasn't particularly looking for a certain program or process or anything. But when I came across it and saw what it was just like an immediate resonation. Like I just knew, like, this is the missing piece that, for what I want to be offering people, for what I need even in my own life. I felt like this is going to be key. I just had this sense about it. And so, so it was like, it wasn't so much that I made some, I was trying to choose or anything. It was more just like, there it was. And it felt like an immediate, yes, I'm supposed to apply for this. I'm supposed to go through this training, become a facilitator, because this is like, it feels very natural for me. So I know that it's the right decision. So, yeah.
Well, that makes sense that you'd be drawn to this, because just now you said it feels like the right decision, right? So you're that feely person, like it felt right.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
What has been truly unique and inspiring about Teal's process?
Let's see. Unique and inspiring. Oh my goodness. Well, the process itself is so unique. I think that's what I love so much about it, is that she's really, well, let's see. I feel like I need to give just a little bit of background about her so that it makes a little bit more sense kind of what the process is and where it comes from. But she actually, her background is that she had extreme abuse for 13 years as a child. So she went through ritual abuse, sexual abuse. When she came out of it, when she escaped basically at age 19, she she was diagnosed with all sorts of things. She was PTSD. She had extreme dissociative identity disorder. She had lots of suicidal attempts, tendencies, all kinds of stuff, cutting. She was doing a lot of stuff. So basically she went through pretty much everything she could think of in terms of therapies and trying to find help for herself. And a lot of things just didn't work, or maybe they worked a little bit, but didn't work all the way. And so kind of throughout her own attempt to heal and to become whole and to integrate herself and pull herself back together, she discovered this thing that works for her and ended up developing it over several years' time into this process. So it's very unique, I think, in that she does take a lot of different modalities, different therapies, different ideas. She uses somatics, she uses shadow work, looking at the darker aspects of ourselves and our darker feelings. She uses inner child work, which is a lot of what the completion process is going into really finding those inner children that have split off from us, or that have, been hiding away, and just bringing love to them. So yeah, it's really unique in that way. And, and it's inspiring for me. It's just very inspiring to see the work, the vision that Teal has for getting this work out into the world, and just seeing the results that people are starting to have is just, it's super inspiring and excites me. It just feels like, okay, this is in alignment with my purpose, what I'm supposed to be here for too. So yeah.
I don't know much about the process, but I read that it's a 20-step process.
18. Yep.
18.
It's about, 18-step process.
A lot of things I hear about online, I'm going off of the question script that I gave you, but a lot of these things I see are like 5 easy steps, 6 easy, and it's part of you is like, really only 6 steps to heal a lifetime of trauma. So when I hear 18, I'm like, yeah, that makes more sense. It seems like there'd be more there.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. It's true. Well, and I think that's one thing I really have appreciated about her teachings is that, she will do videos where it has like 10 things or 10 steps or, or 12 or 20 or whatever number they are. But I think she's so very authentic. Her big thing is just about authenticity. Just like, let's be real. And, so she's not going to say like, these are 5 easy steps. She says, these are 18 steps. And she's actually pretty real about it. It can be hard. You got to be ready to do it, because it can be very hard, because your life is going to fucking blow open after, in a good way. I mean, it is in a good way. Like, it's because you're putting yourself back together. You're really like finding some of those puzzle pieces to click back into place that have been gone and eluding you your whole life. But it's hard work, and she's really clear about that. And so, so there's no 5 easy steps here. There are 18 steps that might be really the most intense steps you've ever been through, but totally worth it.
Awesome. My next question, which you kind of answered, was tell me more about the process. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that you want to share, like details around what it was like for you, or what it was like for her, or maybe like what resources or mentors she used to create it?
Let's see, more about the process. Yeah, as far as like resources and mentors, I know she's worked with and a lot of different people, a lot of different, she's mentioned different things here and there. I'm not really sure 100%. I know she's mentioned Byron Katie in the work, and Eckhart Tolle, and I know she's colleagues with all of those people. So I'm sure there's a lot of influences from different places. But in terms of like what just what the completion process is, it is an 18-step process. The beautiful thing about it is that she's created it as an 18-step process that is meant to go through all of the steps, hopefully in one sitting or in one session each time. That's the idea that she has behind it. But she's also created it in a way that she recognizes that every human is completely individual. Everyone's situation is completely individual. And she's recognizing that we are intuitive beings. And so we also need to really go with our intuition. So in some sessions, I find that it literally feels like it's kind of going through an 18, like I'm covering all 18 steps. But then I'm also really tuned into my intuition and in really listening to what's going on with the client. And if things need to get like, maybe this step needs to come before this step with this person, or maybe this thing that's in this step isn't necessarily going to work for this person because they have a trigger around water, like one of the steps is taking the child to a water source as a place of purification and healing. maybe they've got a trigger around water, so you're going to have to improvise, you know. So it's really just tuning into like your intuition and being really present with the client, but also knowing that there is like a structure to it that makes people feel really safe and contained, you know, that it's there. So yeah, it's a really beautiful process. It's going into the emotions. It's really allowing those things to surface, no matter how painful, and then just using those emotions to really allow some memories. I'm giving you a very quick overview of sort of what the 18 steps are, but you go into some memories or a memory that surfaces. You really go in and validate and hold the child within that memory and give them whatever they need. By hold, I mean hold space, not necessarily you're holding, but you give them whatever they need. And in this case, something so different and unique about this process is that we're not coming in like with our adult minds trying to like figure out what the kid needs, but you're actually really letting the child choose and find exactly what they need to make that situation feel good and complete. And then you take the, you know, child to a safe haven that they've created in their minds. That's a completely safe place that only they have access to, and anyone that they choose to invite there. And it's all within the realm of imagination. So there are no limits. You get to go into whatever kind of, you know, imagination, fantasy place you want to. It can be real. It can be imagined, anything. So it's just a really beautiful creative process that kind of has no limits, which is really amazing.
Ooh. Yeah. Where can we read more? Does her book out?
Her book has been released. So Teal does have a book. It's called The Completion Process by Teal Swan. She has that book out. I believe you can buy it on Amazon.com. I, on my website, have one page that I've dedicated to the completion process. I'm a life empowerment coach. So I'm also coaching and have a coaching website that's just my name, AnissaMatthews.com. And on there, I have a completion process page that just gives a little bit of information. I've got a little video, and it's kind of a work in progress, but yes. And probably even if you Google the completion process, it's pretty popular right now. So there's probably a lot of little articles and things out there about it, but yeah, there's definitely lots of information available. The book is amazing. I highly recommend it because it gives a really detailed explanation of what the completion process is and everything that kind of goes into it. So it's beautiful.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I would love to get that. I want to make sure I get through these other questions, but I have a million other questions popping up in my mind.
Okay.
And I'll get to those, but I'm going to ask the one that I want to ask. I read her bio. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what triggered the trauma in her life was that she was different, right? And like clairvoyant, clairsentient. Yeah. And she talked about how when she was creating the completion process, she was really taking her view of the world into this process. Mm-hmm. And that of course piqued my interest as far as what is she incorporating? This may not be an easy question to answer, but do you kind of see what I'm getting at? Like, how does she see the world? What are those extra things that she's bringing in that we're accessing in her process?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. I feel like I'm not even exactly sure which thing you read because I don't think I read that, but I feel like my first answer or my immediate answer would be just that I think probably what she did was actually use these. She was born with extrasensory perceptions. She's got a lot of different abilities. I think they're all actually things that everyone can develop, but some people for some reason happen to come into life with them already. It probably just depends on your life, you know, at what point you're entering into the carnation in your soul's path or whatever, but all that, we're not talking about all that right now, but she came into life with those abilities. And so she's able to see auras on everyone. She can just see a lot of things. She can see like energetic cords that might be attached to people. And she sees with a lot of different, I guess they're called extrasensory, because sometimes she's like seeing it almost visually on them. Sometimes she's hearing things. Sometimes she's just knowing, like experiencing inside. So yeah, she has a lot of these. And my immediate answer would probably be that she used those a lot to really recognize because she's able to see so clearly what's going on. She was working with a lot of clients for one-on-one for many years. I'm not sure that if she's doing that right now, but she did that for many years, and just being able to use these extrasensory perceptions and this sort of psychic ability and everything that she has of really being able to see what's going on at a deeper level for people that they can't even see. And so I'm imagining that she probably is using those, and that she used them to develop the completion process, with that information. As far as how it enters into the process, I'm not 100% sure. I know that, I feel like I have on a very small scale, probably compared to her, some of those type of abilities that I definitely tune into more when I'm doing the completion process. There is a way to tune in, and it's quite fascinating when you realize that your subconscious is, pulling some things up. Also, you can tap into the collective consciousness during this process. And I think sometimes that will bring in information and bring things in that you might not otherwise have access to. So it's quite fascinating, actually.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Sounds like you just need a session to sign up to experience it.
Exactly. Do a session.
Who's this process for, and what kind of results do those people see?
Oh, great question. So I would say that this process is actually for everyone. It can be for anybody. It is, she describes it as a process to help people with trauma. And sometimes people get put off by that word because we think trauma is something very extreme, and it's been, used in that context a lot. But the reality is trauma is just like any kind of distressing situation that has especially created a behavior or a pattern or an emotional pattern that's recurred through your life, because that's what happens is you have one experience, and from that point, it's like as a child, you're just having a reaction, right? Like we don't have our minds developed in the same way. And especially up until age 8 is where all this is being developed. So you have a reaction to something that feels traumatic, and it's usually going to be something, where it's going to split you off a bit from yourself, because this aspect of you is going off to hide, it's going off to do whatever it needs to do to protect itself. And so then that reaction just keeps, so for the rest of your life, you just keep having these reflections. So from then on, anytime that anything comes up that resembles that experience, you're going to have that same reaction to it, because you've learned that that's how you're supposed to be until you stop it, right? But it's really for anyone. I think it's especially effective, of course, for people with severe traumas. So anyone who has undergone sexual trauma, war, ritual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, any kinds of abuses, especially as children. Beautiful, beautiful process for that. I think, though, that everyone can benefit, because we really do all have trauma. And for one person, their trauma, we might measure it and think, oh, this is really severe trauma, but I didn't have trauma. I was fine. Well, you know what? Maybe you got beat up on the playground when you were a kid. And that might seem like insignificant, but if that caused you to have a reaction, an emotional reaction and a fear response to things happening, like anytime you feel a threat that you're going to immediately go into this fight or flight mode, right? Like that's a trauma. So it's something that you can actually go back and work with, and everybody's got them. Sometimes trauma can actually be passive. Sometimes traumas can be passive, sometimes they can be active. So an active trauma would be something like being abused or being beat up, right? Like somebody's actively traumatizing you. Trauma can also come in the form of neglect. So like if you really needed your mom to show up for you in a certain way and she wasn't able to do that, then it could be an emotional trauma system that aspect of you split off because to try to protect itself because you didn't get what you needed. So it's really just needs based. So I think everyone can benefit. I'm trying to remember the second part of your question.
So after you've gone through the process, what kind of results can you expect to see, the next day, the next week?
Results, yes. Results are lovely. Everybody wants results, right? So again, they're going to be very individual. And I think it's going to depend on what your trauma is. It's going to depend on how you go through the process itself. Part of the process, again, the important key that sets it apart from everything is allowing the child to have choice through the entire thing. So to let your child aspect be in control means that there are several points in the process where we check in with the child and see if it wants to, for example, leave the scene and come to the safe haven. And if it doesn't, okay, we stay with that and we go and we see what's next. Also, we check in with the child at a point of merging. There's always a point where they get the option to merge with our adult self and to come back together and integrate. So it's going to also depend on if the child wants to merge or if the child wants to stay. Maybe they want to stay in a safe haven for a while. They need some time to feel safe and they just want to be there and they don't want to have to come back and, and merge with this adult person. And so it just really depends on kind of what that result is. And also just it's very individual in terms of what the person's trauma was, in terms of, what it is that they're hoping to get from it. So for example, I know that there are several cases of people, veterans that have come back from war, that have tried everything, that have gone through severe PTSD. I think Teal maybe, or I can't remember, anyway, Teal or maybe one of the other practitioners put a story out about one of their clients who had come back from war. He had just had like crazy PTSD, was very suicidal for quite a long time, even went through a period of time where I think there's a term for it, but I've forgotten the term, where he didn't want to leave his house for like a year. He wouldn't even leave his house. And so he tried all kinds of things, different things to try to help him. And when he discovered Teal and started going through the, or discovered the completion process, I'm not sure if it was actually her, but whoever he worked with, that, yeah, it was like basically the first thing that worked for him, where he was able to integrate and really come to a place of healing for himself, that he started to be able to go out of his house and he started to, be able to interact with people in a different way. And his suicidal thoughts were slowly starting to go away. And the cool part of the story is that he actually, because he saw it was working, he became such an advocate for it that he's now trying to spread it around in the veteran community and working with other veterans to really try to help do this process with them. So that's what he became certified. Actually, he became a facilitator. This guy, I'm remembering now this story. It's so cool. So you can see dramatic results with things like that. Often people with addictions, smoking, they wake up the next day and the smoking, because that's where they went with the completion process, was to find the root of why that thing started in the first place, dealt with it, met the need of the child. The next day, it wasn't a matter that they had to try or they had to like suppress the urge to smoke. It was just that the urge was gone. So they just woke up the next day and ta-da. So there's some extreme things like that. For other people, it may be more subtle. It may be just a matter of like, you start to have a little more awareness about certain things. You might find that you're not, where maybe before you got triggered into a certain emotion like every day, and now you're finding it's only every other day, or it can be something like that. And it is a work. So it's not usually the matter of just like one session and then your whole life is going to be like roses and but it's going into each aspect and different triggers and things. And so it is kind of an ongoing work that I usually recommend that people get a few sessions facilitated to kind of have that support. To find a facilitator to walk you through it first. And after a few sessions, unless you're dealing with something very, very severe. If it's a severe trauma, then I definitely recommend having a practitioner working with you. But for people who feel like it's not quite as severe, to have a few sessions with a practitioner, and then to be able, she has actually set it up in a way, that's her heart, that's Teal's heart in putting this out to the world, is that she wants people to have access to it and to be able to do it as a practice on themselves and to start taking yourself through the process. So anytime things do start to come up, you've got this beautiful tool that's just really powerful and effective. And one of these days, I hope that we're all going to have all of our children that have like fractured off at some point when we were little, all come back together and be fully integrated. And at that point, right? Can you imagine? I know.
How powerful would that world be?
Right? It would be amazing. And the cool thing is, we also, just to throw in another, piece of this, is that a lot of the vision too, and a lot of the vision that I personally have, is to be working with this with children, because the idea is also to like use this process and use these concepts to really help children deal with their trauma immediately as it's happening, so that it doesn't get stuck in their body, so that they don't have to fracture off and lose themselves as they're growing up. So to start to work with it with children as they go through it. And I know Teals worked with a lot of children, and she said it's amazing. They go through it so fast. They go so fast compared to adults because they don't have all the stuff built yet, right? So It's boom, okay, let's just get rid of that before it even gets to hook in.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I have a question about Teal Swan.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that name come from?
That's actually her name.
Really?
Yeah, believe it or not, her given name is Teal. Her name was Teal Scott, I believe, her family name, I think. Actually, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's her birth name or not. But she used to be Teal Scott, and she was married to a man. They're actually divorced now, but she was married to a man from India, or who was Indian of origin, and his last name was Swan, and she took that on, and so she was Teal Swan. And now she's just known, she's not married to him anymore, but because that's how she's known, she's just kept the name. So I think it's quite cool.
Wow.
I know, it sounds so magical.
I know. I was like, maybe that's a spirit animal name or something. Wow.
I know.
So
That's
jealous. What is one piece of advice that you would give to myself and others who might watch this?
Advice. I try not to give advice too much, but but I guess if I was going to give advice, I would say, I think the thing that I want to say to like the whole entire world all the time is just trust yourself. Just like trust yourself. Trust your intuition. Know that you know for you better than anybody else. And so it's not, so that we're not so dependent on everyone else having to create a reality, but that we get to create our own. And even as it relates to this process, I think it's huge just to really trust. When I say trust the process, I don't necessarily mean trust Teal's process, but I just mean trust the process of life, trust the process of journey, the journey of life, and just yourself, just knowing that you've got all the answers within you, and it's, you're trustworthy.
Yeah, it's a great place to leave off, unless you have anything else you want to share.
No, I think that covered a lot. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm sure that wherever this is posted, we're going to post links to Teal's website, to Teal's videos, to Anissa's website. So wherever you're seeing this video, just look in the comments, look somewhere, and there will be links for you. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to end the recording now.